Star Wars Celebration is one of the greatest gatherings of human beings ever. If you aren't familiar with Star Wars Celebration, it is literally the Star Wars convention, like the big one. Majority of the time, anything Star Wars that you can imagine to desire, it's gonna be there. When I went to my first Star Wars Celebration, I was 22 years old. I was fresh off of an awful military deployment, just recently got out of a toxic relationship, I was just starting on social media, and I didn't plan on going to Celebration until literally like less than a month prior. I had posted on my Instagram story asking if anybody would be interested in going to Anaheim, and I had gotten in contact with these two lovely gents. We all virtually agreed to meet and share a room after never meeting each other in person, and that was the first time we had met, was Celebration Anaheim. And those guys, just off of one story post, off of one convention, became some of my best friends at a time that I desperately needed people. This is just one example of the power that Star Wars Celebration holds over the entire Star Wars community. What I can confidently say about Star Wars Celebration is that the convention as a whole has a lot to it, but the most important part about the convention is the people that you come across and you meet. You will meet old friends, you will meet brand new friends. I now have lifelong friends that I can rely on because of Star Wars Celebration. Celebration was the first ever convention that made me realize the most important part about conventions isn't the merchandise. It's not the celebrity meet and greets, or the sneak previews of upcoming projects. It's the people. So this is a question that I've now been pondering over the past 3-4 years. Why don't we have more? If you don't know, the first ever Star Wars Celebration was held in 1999 in Denver, Colorado. This gathering of individuals was created so that they could create hype around a little indie project.
Thank you.
This is the beginning, man. This is an ending.
Called the Phantom Menace. It was kind of a mess. First things first, it was planned late, like really late. So late that the convention center was already booked up.
And the wind and rain have created major problems for an event that brought thousands of visitors to Denver. 7 News reporter Bill Clark explains.
They're still selling tickets to the Star Wars Celebration at Lowry's Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum, but the only force with the fans on Friday afternoon was outside in a cold wind and rain. Not even that driving rain could drive off dedicated fans anxious to see more clips from the new Star Wars film before its May 19th premiere. So which one of the Star Wars characters are you?
We're the wet ones. Yeah.
Is this thing worth it?
I don't know, I haven't gotten to decide yet.
And Rick McCallum was literally on record stating that it was Woodstock for Star Wars fans. It almost didn't help that the event was that close to being postponed. With Star Wars Celebration being at the Wings Over Rockies Air and Space Museum, that was tragically 15 to 20 miles from
Columbine High School.
A total of 15 people are believed to have died here, 12 students, 1 faculty member, and the 2 young killers.
Hillary and I are profoundly shocked and saddened by the tragedy today in Littleton, and express my profound concern for the people of Littleton.
That horrific event took place less than 10 days from Star Wars Celebration's first scheduled date. There was a lot of internal debate from Lucasfilm, from locals, and people wondered, should Star Wars Celebration go on? And it did. Everyone decided that the event needed to be pushed on, and for multiple different reasons. Lucasfilm and a lot of fans believed that this type of event would allow people to express themselves in a really awful time. And so everybody, including locals, made the absolute best of it. Lucasfilm set up donation boxes for the victims of the Columbine shooting, and the fans raised $30,000 just by themselves. Even with all this adversity, with an awful tragedy happening just not too far away, plus awful weather, and a lot of mismanagement, Star Wars Celebration 1 pushed on, and it still ended up being an amazing event. There was a life-size X-Wing that was brought in. Anthony Daniels literally carried the event on his back. He, without even needing any prompting from event officials, walked out in the rain and got to know guests. He got to know fans, and he socialized with them and treated them just like they were family, which is really interesting to me, because if you hear a lot of stories about Anthony Daniels, whether it's in person, at conventions, or greets, they're not always, unfortunately, the most positive stories. And while I don't always believe situations like that, it's really great to hear that there are still great Anthony Daniels stories out there. The next after that was held 3 years later for the release of Attack of the Clones. This celebration brought in a total of 75,000 people. And the worst part about this celebration is that they had only planned for 15 to 20,000. And a very large draw to this event was that Carrie Fisher was doing autographs.
But the holy grail of Star Wars characters is more difficult to find.
The end of the line will probably take 6 hours.
Rumor is the real Princess Leia, actress Carrie Fisher, is signing autographs at the end of this line. And there are no shortcuts.
To see Princess Leia with NBC?
I'm sorry, she is not doing any interviews
I don't want to talk. I just want to see Princess Leia.
Can't let you in.
Really?
The next was almost 3 years later again for Revenge of the Sith. You get the idea at this point. Star Wars Celebration has always seemingly put on this event to promote a brand new project. This begs the question for me, why? When you have one of the, if not the largest fan base of nerds around the world who are ready and willing to spend all of their hard-earned money on your IP at any given time, why would you limit yourself to just this? This next point of discussion is a very hard reality check for me personally, and it doesn't feel good, I'll be real. The last celebration in the United States that I attended, I was 22 years old. The next one to be held in the United States, I'll be 27. That's horrifying. And that may not sound like much to you older folk, but for people our age, 22 is the difference between being able to go into a college bar and then looking like an unk and not being able to go into a college bar. That gap is literally more than a standard military contract. That's enough time from a child to go from birth to being 5 years old. Kids can develop a large part of their personality in just that time frame. I know this because my daughter will be 5 years old at that time. And looking back, it feels like initially no time has passed, but so much has happened since 2022. So once again, I'm asking why? Star Wars Celebration, in my opinion, doesn't need a new project to correlate with the celebration itself. It doesn't always need a stacked celebrity lineup. It doesn't even need appearances from executives or directors. Hell, even having major brands like Lego or Hasbro or Funko, none of that really matters. What's most important about Celebration is the people. That's always been the case. My one and only celebration I've ever been to, I got into one panel and I was extremely lucky. I walked halfway through the audience as Kylo Ren while the panel was going on. I got the weirdest looks from Tamora Morrison and Daniel Logan on stage, which is really weird because out of all the places that you'd expect to see a Kylo Ren parading around, you'd think that Star Wars Celebration might be the more accepting place for that type of thing. But for me personally, I wasn't really attracted to the idea that I would have to sit in line in my costume for quite a bit of time just for a chance to hear celebrities talk from almost a football field away. And the clips were going to make their way onto social media at some point anyways. When I went to Anaheim, I didn't have any of the following or any of the community I had now. And even with such a limited following compared to what I have now, and I'm not saying I have a big one now because I really don't, but what I had back then was a fraction, and I still saw so many people that I knew. And there were a lot of people that still saw me and knew who I was. I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. I played football, I've played basketball, I've done a myriad of different sports, I've done a myriad of different extracurriculars. I've been a musician for most of my life. But Star Wars Celebration was the first time that I had ever even felt close to a sense of community that I've desired since I was a very little kid playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 on his PlayStation. That convention saved me because the amount of stuff that I was going through at that time, whether it was an awful military deployment, being in the military is its own problem as a whole. I was going through a divorce at the time. There were about 100 different problems that I was experiencing in life, and Star Wars Celebration was the best relief valve that could have come at no better timing. And what made it even more amazing is it was a phenomenal gathering of nerds and like-minded people like myself across the street from Disneyland. Rebel Scum Con is an excellent convention that shows that you don't need a brand new project tied to a Star Wars convention. They had a lot of great guests, but they also had a lot of niche fans that only like deep Star Wars fans would know. These guests embraced the community, and the community gave it right back. Attendance was great, and it was better than the first year, and it's only going to continue to grow from this point on. Now, if only we could get a celebration annually with a proper promotion from Lucasfilm, I promise you they would rake in some serious bucks. And while I know there is a side of people that say that that would make celebrations less special, I disagree. And if you don't believe me, ask any of the guests that went from 2015 to 2017 for 3 years straight. I have a very strong suspicion that you won't hear many complaints. Maybe I just don't understand the financials. Maybe I don't understand the logistics.
Maybe I led you to believe it was easy when it wasn't. Or maybe you're just making excuses.
Maybe I'm uneducated for thinking that Star Wars is missing out on a really great profit and a great opportunity to boost community morale in a community that we hear all the time is so divisive and so argumentative, when in reality, if you've ever been to Star Wars Celebration, you see nothing but positivity from all fans everywhere. Maybe I just don't understand. There are people that make a lot of money to make these decisions, when to have these conventions, when not to have them, where to have them, why they want to have them, and I guess maybe I just don't understand. But damn, do I really wish that I could have a Star Wars convention every single year.